Jumbo Sodonimi John, Monum Jimbo Nagayan. Nagardargan Zando Germer Dotomba, DJ Janla, Gishamzaro, Major, telling Janganson, Jawar Tiki Shando Yella. Jimmy Bonzo Jala Zora, the Gordia Dobambo, Shinji, Gerlonta, Tiki Simeon, Zembrishina. Sim something la neighbor and Gerald, Sim something la Nipi, Shirin, Jitin Kia, and Gabim Sanyet. Nam Shibran Gero, Di Sher, Keki Tata, Sunji, Sampun Gumba, Gumber Shah, Gumber Shah, Kanji, Sampun Topi, Kansana, Semayam, Manjerte, Huerna, Chik Superan Topi, Kanzaka, Charag, Pertumba, Jen, Jibrushi, Kanzaki. Kyang Samton Labar Gumba La Teni Shirip Chi Nzagda Marji Go, De La Samton Jibshawo, Gerlong Tak, Ked Shirip Dana, Ketchuk Shirip, Ket Shirip Dana, Dojan Meper Gero, Shirip Ki, Tagda, Rangil Laftane, Yongs, Manim Shipi, Dok Tambandala, Tarwa Toper Gero, Kate Testa Mayana, Dena. Lamba Mayan Jean, Cooker Jaya Mayan Bay, Mangmechi Shaw, Mangmepachi Shaw. Sherb Mudan Damba Kanzagner, Gavadan, Navadan, Shivi, Jamsole, Jury, Tajam, Churbi, Jazon, Yeno, Marigbi, Mamba Servi, Dromechimbo, Yeno, Nat Tamchit, Manzambo, Yeno, Nyomombi, Shantamchit, Chuper, Stari Numbo, Yeno, Dina Ketchuk, Tubsum Gumba, Shirv, Laftene. Rani Lagbi shows of Dropper of Shago, Shirip Gigo Dambi, Ganzan, Shi Mugjan Yin, Shi Mugjan Manian. Shi Mugjan Manian, Shi Mugdan Murday. Janam, Sarum Tomor of Sheto, De La Shirip Chief Shago, Gerlonta, Jubar, Natsope, and the same number of Yammer and Jerry. Rapto Shung Yang, Tarwa Topper Manguru, Dina, Gerlong Darnabra Yang was same gift Trubarnam near the Palmer of Shago, Kanjig Rapto Jivi, Deva Topper and Dodna, Trubani Barnam, Labar Gabro Shaw, Konau, De La Truba me Pajiv Shaw, Gerlong, Ketchak, the Yundan Tamchela, Sechig, Sember Shi, the Jatan Chunkan Pumajan, the Verme Parpon of Shago, Tjimbo on Damba Division Shabekana, Pambi, Chu Labar. Tan Zimbi, Kitchik, Sumba Chimbu, Yamsam or Shago, De La Reserdan, Chendram, Shandong, Wemby, Kangor Nams, Jigni Tang de Laboratopi, Chuji, Tona, Sambra Shago, Starter, Rani Lap Kurde, Zumbi, Gumbra Shago, Gumbra Shago. Chitse in Gopern Gerbe, Metzer Tonzut, Mortongo. Dagna Natan Marshall Kebir Mambab Zambortava Yin Mantemen Mambi Nonkun Mayan Batan Dagna Jodlum Shibi Lamkin Kepartava Yin Yang Nyanne Jodman Lamkin Yi Nonkun Mayan Bab Jeno Gerlonta Dungur So Demba Jibola Tetsum Donam near the Traverti Shu Tetsum Dang Jarang Iban Ronger Shago Jammer Shago Ter Tripjumden Deki Langsam Song Yang Travan Domkan Mamchi So 대지시르지는 코로나라 대좀 맘시비 쉬로 디체 게르노 망가빈 로아남지 셈랍 딱데 좀던데 란더크도 소라 좀던데 다와 쪼른 제리양트 니마 짱어른 제리양트 산지지 송법 뎀바 자나 잔단 제르와 마츠도 산지지 송법 등을 뎀바너 등을 무데 데브른 제르스캅 맘치소 데브전던 고비 뎀바너 제르테 르제잔단 제르와 마츠도 등을 고브른 도페 디경 고브르시 Jung Gobber Shibim Dreven Gobberin Gero, the Hun Gobi Lamna Lam Wimbe, Lamjan Meto, Jumdan de Gerlon Namdi, Demba Janishi Yantaber, Tiene Totum Mamchi so. The Lankurgi Nane, Lamji Chu Mato Batana, Sandim Yan Lendeberam Tone, Sem Yan Yerdon Giro, Lamji Chula Jigbatana, Sandi Gerson Tone, Jora Tobe, Chesterm Samo Look. Logun Tonga Jendam Tongilam Tober Gero, Lam Tarshan Batang, Dungerji Jamso Chimbole, Yonsatar, Emasan Gip Jondan, the Tinji near them Yanda, Zibatam Gip Tobakier and Gero. Their Turk Gerlong Manga Ben Kurtamchi, Demba Jibi, Tuncheta, Gender Tobi, Certe, Cut of Sorto, then Jondan 기 특지 진분 코르 탐질라 랍도 담비 시르더 슬라리앙더 그도 가르자도 게롱다 계적기 샘 뇽몽 바당 등을 나를 마시지 더 급가리 와르더 내장 다른 직벌 당능 가리 와르더 내장 다른 직벌은 지르데 디버 딤터 트라르 마티르비 추나 무브람 만저로 더진기 톤점나 추 탐치장 담바 야노 더 연랑도 내장 때를 허비 돈 맘치소 더그 조르 지르 하당 머남나 자르 시소 조르 마니 바르남나 길라 조르 시비 제당 찐노 쭌노 당내 존테 더그 로마 남지 찌그네 찌그도 get대 냠스랑나 대정식바 추지르 떡도 너바미 프라네 버는 요로 직된 탐치는 머떡 바당 디바 탐치는 자라르르베 등어당 동무스 메퍼 직된 지랑진 시브르 샤고 니르도 타라토 비르라토 쫀나 쫀지 삼브르 샤고 시르기 워능 라테네 마르 비만 밥사르 샤고 직된 지 추르남노 닌 체와당 딱 몹ዙ트 바당 담바 말르베 다근더 나든간 바토라 젠담 닝을렌 다로 공소 너는 도르 샤베 리데 니바당 먹기 공부올르베 딱 블리지 샤고 간식 티와당 나와당 가와당 치비 잠조 진보 셴와남미 르남렘 케바스 지금 더니든 도라 라 찌르트르 자보당 총근당 시마사파전도 쪼르 만지르 게르롱다 제적남 심 찌르지비 람레 니브름 종위 슬라트 쏨브르 샤고 직텐지 담바당 요베 추탐치드나 직바당 흘빔 산니잔 럭소 게르롱다 제적가 정만마버 냠브르 조지 디 종잠니 덩닝은 데버 공베 더너 덕과 치 타미르 담거 럭소 상진 다키 저침 김도 지샤와 조소 돔뇽데 청지 저반다니 로곤 리니 임돈지 야낙 간지 트로트 지바테로 집도 뜨디 테르미아 지비 치토롱 로츠와 그마시리 게르놈자 비디아낙 회레 워크트 게르와 워츠
Well, let us continue with the Sutra of the Last Bequeathed.
如果今天讲完的话，明天、后天是讲报信了，然后下个礼拜一开始呢，我们讲圣大解脱经就是礼拜一和二讲圣大解脱经。还有前两天我让
In the last few days, I've also asked for people with the ability to translate the Doha song that's composed by Pontsogor Rinpoche. If you have the ability to translate this Doha song into different language, that would be really wonderful. So after making that announcement, many people already translated it into the Chinese language, English, Sanskrit, Arabic, Indian, Russian, Norwegian, Malaysian, Mongolian, Thai, Spanish, Portuguese, Japanese, German, French, Italian, Korean, and Dutch, as well as Swedish, Polish, as well as Vietnamese. Those are already translated. Currently, that's in translation are, for example, the Czech, as well as Romanian, the Slovenian, all of those languages, and many more are still in translation. This is definitely considered as a wonderful cause, a wonderful auspicious coincidence and dependent origination that we're contributing our effort so that the spirit and wisdom of Pontsogor Rinpoche would be propagated to every corner of this world. If we can propagate the teachings to different beings with the different languages, they would be definitely quite auspicious so that the ring of wisdom from the great lineage masters such as Pontsogor Rinpoche would be spread to different places in this world. All of us also should make the aspiration that if you are very good at language, then you should try with various methods to propagate the teaching in these ways. Previously, we've already studied the last Bequeathed Sutra, and we've already learned about the right mindfulness. Now let us continue. Over here, the Buddha then said that all of you bhikshus, if you collect your thoughts, your mind will be concentrated. You will be in this samadhi. If your mind is in concentration, you can know the arising and ceasing of all dharma's appearances. For this reason, all of you should constantly and vigorously cultivate concentration. And here, the Buddha then taught on meditation or meditative absorption. And the Buddha said that the bhikshus or the practitioners should rather tame one's mind. We usually would say that the mind is just like a wild horse, and such kind of a wild horse should be tamed with the correct dharma. If we can tame our mind, it is considered as meditative absorption. If the mind is abiding in this meditative absorption, then you would be able to see the arising and ceasing of all the Dharma appearances. You would see everything clearly, just like how when the water is still, then you would be able to see the clear reflection of the moon. However, if the water is not still, is rather being stirred up, then you won't be able to see the moon's reflection at all. Similarly, if your mind is clear, you will be able to gain all kinds of insights. In fact, all kinds of insights can be attained. Therefore, the Buddha said that you should then vigorously practice in all kinds of meditation. Let it be the four meditations, the four meditative absorptions and 8 samadhis, or the worldly meditation and the transmundane meditation of the non-duality of luminosity and emptiness. If one can abide in that kind of meditative absorption, then you can definitely attain the fruition of liberation. According to the collection of all virtuous deeds, it states that there are 2 powers that is of the most supreme. Out of the first supreme power, that is karma, we have already entered into this wheel of birth and death. And out of the power of meditative absorption of samadhi, then you can exit the realm of birth and death. The power of karma has already pushed us into this realm of into the samsara of the 3 realms and the 6 realms. With the power of meditative absorption, we can surpass such kind of samsara of birth and death. Without meditation, without practice, if you want to attain liberation, it would indeed be very difficult. There are people who enjoy, for example, circumambulate the stupa and writing the sutras and chanting, as well as contemplation and so on. But if one do not engage in actual practice, then the mind would just be like a wild horse, or like a monkey, or like a flash of lightning. The dualistic thoughts would constantly arise, which could result in your wandering in the samsara forever longer. So we need to practice in the way, for example, with the method of recognizing and the systematic practice of the 9 methods of abiding one's mind, right mindfulness, as well as recognizing the nature of one's mind to tame your own mind. In this way, you will have the opportunity of attaining liberation, and that is why the Buddha said that you have to practice meditation. And then the Buddha continued to say that If you attend concentration, your mind will not be scattered. It is like a household that uses its water sparingly and is able to regulate its irrigation ditches. One who cultivates concentration is also the same way. For people who are good at using water, especially the ones who are very good at creating, for example, wells or building irrigation systems, they wouldn't want to waste any water. Similarly, a person who is very good at practicing in meditative absorption, they would not let go of the water of wisdom he cultivates then dhyana concentration, so it would not leak away. By practicing in meditative absorption, the water of wisdom will not be wasted. We often say that, don't we? That out of quietude, it generates meditative absorption. Out of such kind of meditative absorption, wisdom would arise. Wisdom is just like the lamp that could radiating light. However, without meditation, then such kind of lamp is just like the flame of candle in the ghastly wind. So such kind of fire of wisdom can be distinguished by other conditions, by the external conditions. Therefore, we need to practice dhyana, the meditative absorption, to protect our fire of wisdom. As we can see that there are lots of practitioners who are very good in terms of wisdom during the during their studying and contemplation process. However, because they do not have any meditative absorption, their wisdom cannot be utilized on the career of propagating the sentient beings as well as benefiting themselves. Even they can't persist all the way through, they would give up halfway throughout their practice. That is the reason. It is because they do not have any meditative absorption. For the ones whom, for example, have meditative absorption and continuously to protect the recognition of one's own mind, the nature of mind, with this kind of dhyana, the worldly beings would describe this kind of people who have such kind of meditative absorption are the ones who are often at ease and who knows what to do and very much focused and very steadfast. They do not waver because of the changes of exterior phenomena. External phenomena. There is a very famous master whose name is Ikolama, and he often would scold the practitioners whom squander their time in distraction. He said that, well, are you sitting on top of a cushion full of thorns? Because if so, then meditation would be painful. His way of saying it sarcastically is by saying that there are people whom do not engage in meditation practice at all, because those kind of people whom can't sit on a cushion for a long period of time seems that they do not have any meditative absorption to sit. We can see people, in fact, do that sometimes. People do not have any meditative absorption, then they would stay in one department only for a short period of time and then switch to another department. And if that were to happen for a person when they change different departments ever fast, then I would think that this person either has lots of wisdom, just like bees. They would stay here and stay there, and and changing different departments to get the wisdom out of the different departments. Or the other more likely explanation is that they do not have a very sturdy mind. They do not have dhyana. Some of our fellow practitioners, I noticed that they are very good in terms of their meditative absorption, and their minds are sturdy because they've volunteered to clean the washroom for the Sangha for many, many years. In fact, they do it out of their own motivation and without being asked to. When people were to have interviews, I suggest that do not only look at the ones who have an extensive experience and switching departments very often, as well as switching classes often. I think that's really a sign of not being steadfast, because their mind is not abiding in dhyana. It is more likely because their mind is not steady, they have to switch the different posts as well as different classes. I think when people engage in one particular area or one particular profession for a long period of time, then one can attain very obvious result or obvious progress. Otherwise, if you were to only pay visits to different areas, it is not really meaningful. So over here, in terms of dhyana, the noble ones of the past would often say that if you would say that do not see what is inappropriate, do not listen to the ones that is inappropriate, do not practice the kind of action that's inappropriate, do not say things that's inappropriate. The worldly beings often say that too, but there is no particular method. And they do not really indicate the results that could arise out of those inappropriate actions. But over here, we can learn that the method of practicing only the appropriate actions is to use right mindfulness to tame one's mind. That is the true dhyana. There are people we can see throughout our interaction with them, they do not have any distraction, they do not move about, and their eyes are not flickering from here and there. We can see through those actions that their minds are definitely very sturdy or have rather very good insights in some ways. So this is the meditative absorption aspect, without which wisdom would not be able to arise in one's mind. According to the Maharukta Sutra, it says that if one's mind do not have any meditative absorption within, then there is no pure wisdom within. Without pure wisdom, then one will definitely have all kinds of defilements, such as grasping to self and grasping to object, and all kinds of defilements, such as the various afflictions. So in order to eradicate all of them, then you have to practice vigorously in meditation. I encourage all of you, let it be the morning, evening, or whenever you have time, at least you should meditate for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a half an hour. You should engage and habituate yourself in meditation. This is really crucial. In fact, many of us do not have a lot of time. We don't have the time to practice all together as a group meditation, but we do practice meditation during the Guru Yoga section at the beginning of around the before class chanting. So that is a very short period of meditation. But through this kind of meditation, through this method, our mind would slowly be able to abide. We have to tame our mind slowly and slowly. On one hand, mind is very difficult to be tamed because it has already accustomed to be distracted. On the other, once the mind get accustomed to be tamed, then it can abide in various situations naturally. But if we do not care about it, if we let it be, then the mind would definitely be quite wild. So we have to practice meditation vigorously. Then the Buddha said that all of you bhikshus, if you have wisdom, you will be free of greed and attachment. So over here, the Buddha said that all of you bhikshus, if you were to attain the understanding of prajna paramita in terms of the teachings on emptiness and the wisdom of selflessness, once you practice upon that kind of wisdom, then you would not generate any greed or attachment. Always examine yourself, the Buddha continued to say that, and do not allow yourself to have faults. So you should examine your own mind stream. And make such observation with wisdom. Of course, there are two aspects of wisdom, that is relative and ultimate. With the ultimate wisdom, we can see that there is no self and object to grasp onto of all phenomena. And with the wisdom of relative, we'll be able to find truth. So, by relying on wisdom and by observing our own mind stream, we will not generate any attachment. Monastics and lay practitioners as well, we should not give up on the teachings of prajna paramita. We should not give up on the emptiness. Many people used to think that, there's no way for me to practice the ati. There is no way for me to understand the Madhyamika. There is no way for me to practice on emptiness. I can only chant the money mantra, that's it. This is definitely not enough. According to the commentary, it says that if one do not have wisdom, then this person is fettered. If one has wisdom, this person can be named as liberated. According to Master Richen's translation of the Sutra of Father and Son, the meeting of Father and Son, where it says that if one were to understand the Dharma of all phenomena, the truth of Dharma, then they would generate natural aversion towards the five desires. The bliss that's generated from five desires would be abandoned. So if one were to be good at taming one's own mind, all kinds of afflictions can be eradicated. So all kinds of afflictions, the 84,000 afflictions can be eradicated if you can generate the wisdom or to give rise to the wisdom of no self. And then the Buddha continued to say that if you never examine yourself, I do not know what to call you, for you are neither a cultivator of the way nor a layperson. And over here, a cultivator of the way refers to the monastics, because previously the Buddha said that all of you bhikshus, so that's the crowd that he addressed to. The kind of practitioner, for example, if they do not cultivate wisdom, then they are not considered as a cultivator of the path. They do not consider to be as a practitioner. If you're not a cultivator of the practitioner, then would you be considered as a lay practitioner? No, they're not lay practitioners either, because such kind of people have already shaved off their hair and wear the robes. As the Buddha said that you should touch your head. I heard many practitioners do touch their heads every day now. If you do not understand emptiness, and if you're not a lay practitioner, then what are you then? The Buddha said that I do not know what to call you. As a monastic, you have to renounce from all the worldly affairs, such as your family and such as samsara, at least making such aspiration. But for such kind of person, without the wisdom of understanding emptiness, then this person cannot be considered as a monastic, cannot be considered as a genuine practitioner. According to Vinaya, it says that the people without wisdom cannot be beneficial to the others, and sometimes it can be harmful to the others. There was once a heretic met Shariputra because these heretics do not understand the Buddha Dharma, therefore they composed the 500 questions. And Shariputra is very good at answering those questions, and he answered those questions one by one in a very perfect fashion. So these people then generated a great faith towards Dharma, and then they renounced the worldly affairs and took refuge and got ordained. At the time of getting ordained, he couldn't find Shariputra anymore. Rather, he found a very foolish monastic. So after getting ordained in front of that foolish monastic, he continued to pose more and more questions. But the other monastic doesn't understand how to answer those questions at all. And this heretic generated wrong view and thought that, what a foolish bhikshu, there is really no meaning for me to become a renunciate inside the Buddhist community. And then that's why he decided to derobe. That is why it's quite important for the monastics to generate great wisdom and capacity, so that all the Buddhists as well as the non-Buddhist practitioners would generate joyfulness once they meet such a monastic. If you do not understand any teachings on emptiness, if you do not even generate any insights on the wisdom of emptiness, then you're not considered as a practitioner. You're not even considered as a monastic or a practitioner at all. So similarly, as a lay practitioner, if you have not generated any understanding of emptiness, then you have not tasted the true taste of Buddha Dharma. This is really important to be aware of it. And then the Buddha continued to say that one with wisdom rides in a secure boat for crossing over the ocean of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Wisdom is also like a big bright lamp in the darkness of ignorance. We usually would say that darkness is so it is of great darkness that you can't even see your own 5 fingers on a hand. But with wisdom, with the lamp of wisdom, it can dispel all the darkness. And wisdom is like a good medicine for those who are sick. and a sharp axe for cutting down the tree of afflictions. A very sharp axe that could cut through all those afflictions. That's just like trees and vines. So those are the four examples and metaphors that the Buddha had given to the practitioners to demonstrate the importance of wisdom. We shouldn't be very oblivious about the teachings upon emptiness. In fact, people with wisdom, they would definitely try to study emptiness and gain such wisdom. Genuine practitioners, especially the ones with great wisdom, both and very appropriate in terms of the outside appearance as well as the inner realization, they would definitely make a contribution to Buddha Dharma. If they only uphold the appearance of it being a monastic or a practitioner, but have harbor lots of afflictions and wrong view within, even their actions are not appropriate, then this kind of person would be quite destructive to the whole Dharma, to the whole Buddhism. So we have to then be very aware of people's character, their action, their precepts, their view, and their practice. We have to make sure that there is a appropriate procedure to go through to find the kind of appropriate person to become a monastic. Otherwise, if we were to see monastics roaming about, but their actions are inappropriate, we don't even want to sit with them, and through their eye gaze, through their actions from various perspectives, if we do not feel that the monastics are very respectable, don't even mention about counting on them to propagate the Dharma and taking up the responsibilities of benefiting sentient beings. If they're not even a regular person to start with, if they're not even a good person to start with, then they could generate lots of negative influence onto Buddhism. That is why the Buddha would inquire about their background when people want to get ordained. He would ask the people, do you have any mental issues, or do you have any problems? Do you have any physical problems, and so on and so forth. So those are the questions that's usually asked, because the handicaps as well as people with mental illness would not generate benefit to oneself or the others. Therefore, at the time when you do not have the appropriate inner and external causes and conditions, if you do not have those conditions fulfilled, then it would be the best for you to just become a lay practitioner and practice confession and engage in diligent practice. That would be the best. And then the Buddha continued to say that for this reason, all of you should increasingly benefit yourself by learning, considering, and cultivating wisdom. Even though a person only has flesh eyes, if he has illuminating wisdom, he has a clear understanding. This is my teaching on wisdom. And then the Buddha said that all of you bhikshus over here, the Buddha started giving the last of all the teachings. He said that if you indulge in all sorts of idle discussions, your mind will be scattered, and even though you have left home life, you will not attain liberation. So, any of those practitioners, if you were to engage in idle discussions, frivolous chatterings, and so on and so forth, last year when we studied the Sutra of generating the supreme aspiration of bodhisattvas, where it also talked about all kinds of frivolous chatters on various levels. There are for example, the chatters that's all the chatters that's irrelevant to liberation, all kinds of knowledge, let it be academic debates or any of the worldly knowledge of the astronomy and geography and medicine and religion and arts and so on and so forth. Those are all considered as frivolous chatters. From the ultimate point of view, of course, everything is not coming, not going, not right, not wrong, not ceasing, not arising. But in the relative sense, all of those kinds of chatters that's not related to liberation are considered as frivolous chatters. So all of you bhikshus, you should quickly renounce scattered thoughts and idle discussions. If you want to attain happiness of still tranquility, you only need to eliminate the error of frivolous debate. This is my teaching on not having idle discussion. So if you truly want to attain liberation and enjoy the happiness that is the true nirvana, then you have to eliminate all kinds of idle chatters and idle discussions. We often say that the great sage, that is the Buddha, I am paying prostration to you because you are the one who has distinguished all kinds of frivolous chatters and elaborations. So to eliminate all kinds of elaborations, that is the key of attaining true liberation. And the greatest characteristic of Buddhism is to part from all kinds of elaborations. According to the essential collection of all the Dharma teachings, it says that if one were to seek for the true liberation, one should abide in the pure wisdom, not grasp onto any elaborations and games like such. This kind of person can be renowned as the God of gods, or can be called the most noble one of the celestial beings, or the most noble one among all human beings. That is the greatest characteristic of the Buddha, whom abide in the pure wisdom and have already and truly realized the insights that surpass all the four extremes and 8 elaborations. That is why the Buddha has the title of being the guide of all the humans and the celestial beings. So if you want to attain the same kinds of realization, you have to also eliminate all kinds of worldly elaborations too. Previously, we've already talked about all the passages, and that's directly given to the disciples by the Buddha. In some of the outlines, the previous parts, all the way till now, they are considered as the virtue of the beginning and middle, and the next part then becomes the part where it talks about the virtue of the ending, or talks about how how to keep propagating the Dharma teaching. And then the Buddha said that all of you bhikshus, with respect to merit, out of all kinds of merit, such as abiding in meditation and pure precepts and knowing the principle and have limit and knowing what is shameful and contentment, as well as decrease of one's desire, wisdom and meditation, diligence, and all of those kinds of merits, in fact, are generated through practice with single-mindedness without any laziness. So relinquish laziness. According to the great heap of jewels sutra, it says that the immeasurable number of past Buddhas, as well as the present Buddhas and the future Buddhas, all the virtues of all of them abide at the practice of relinquish laziness. So the Buddhas of the 3 times attained the fruition of enlightenment, of full enlightenment, because they relinquished laziness. As the followers of the Buddhas of the 3 times, we should observe ourselves at all times with right mindfulness, and observe ourselves by asking this question: am I currently being distracted? Am I currently indulging in sleep? Am I talking about the faults of the others? Am I not observing my own mind stream? Am I looking for others' faults? If you were to ask these questions to yourself and observe your own mind stream in these ways, then it is called relinquishing laziness, relinquishing any distractions. It is because you are engaging in the correct Dharma with all your 3 gates. So the Buddha said that if you were to practice with great diligence without any laziness and apply antidotes to your afflictions at all times with right mindfulness, you will eventually achieve great attainment and fruition of your practice. And then the world-honored one, the great compassionate one, the great honored one, has now finished his compassionate teaching for your benefit. All of you need only to practice it diligently. So the Buddha said that I've already finished giving all the teachings I want to address you before passing into parinirvana. So those over here, the Buddha has concluded the teaching part. And then the Buddha said that all of you need only to practice it diligently. You have to uphold it diligently. In fact, not only practicing upon it by yourself, you should also propagate the teachings to the others. According to the Sutra of Great Heap, the Great Heap of Jewels Sutra, it says that the Buddha has already given the teachings to the others, and the way of repaying the kindness to the world-honored one is only by upholding the teaching, at the same time encouraging others to uphold the teaching the similar way. So we should, on one hand, try our best, wholeheartedly engage in practice in ways such as listening to one class, studying one book, and observing your own mind stream, and see if you've made any progress, and if you've already done, if you're studying the Dharma every day. This is really important. important. And the second of all is that after studying the Mahayana Dharma, in order to repay the kindness of the Buddha as well as the kindness of the lineage masters, we should also uphold the pure mind to have the pure motivation and then give teachings to the others. We need to make sure that our motivation is pure. It is not to gain any offering, it is not to gain any fame, it is not to gain any benefit of social status at all. So over here, the Buddha said that I've already finished giving you teachings. Now it is your turn to practice, to engage in diligent practice. So where should you engage in this kind of practice? Whether you're in mountains, in a desolate marsh, beneath a tree, or in a quiet dwelling, be mindful of the Dharma you have received and do not forget it. Any kinds of quiet places, you should contemplate upon the teachings that you've received through your teacher, through the virtuous friends. Let it be on impermanence or the Four Noble Truths. You should remember them with right mindfulness and then encourage yourself to practice diligently and think that I should engage in practice and get up early. I should practice the preliminary practices, and I should engage in so-and-so practices. Do not disencourage yourself at all times. Do not think that, oh, I have so many afflictions, maybe my only outcome is to commit suicide. Don't think in such a way. I'm not sure what's wrong with people nowadays, maybe because of their karmic retribution. People don't have any faith in themselves, and whenever they talk to the others, it's only full of negative words. They would say that this is not going to be successful, it's very horrifying, it is going to violate precepts, the teacher won't be happy, the Buddha is not happy with me. In fact, if you tend to get very unhappy with yourself and have lots of dualistic thoughts like this, then you would generate lots of worries. I remember that once Phuntsok Rinpoche was ill, a group of us stayed in Chengdu for a long period of time. At the time, Khenpo Tsochum Lodro as well as Lama Sodom, we were all there. And Lama Sodom has lots of dualistic thoughts, and he would think that, oh, Phuntsok Rinpoche didn't look at me, he must have been upset with me. Then he kept on thinking in such a way, and Tsochum Lodro Khenpo said that, well, the Lama is not like that at all. The Lama doesn't have a small-heartedness like that. In fact, lots of our fellow practitioners nowadays are like that as well. They would feel that, oh, the Lama did not look at me. Is it because I've upset him? Is it because I've upset my fellow practitioners? Did I upset so-and-so? Did I upset my deity? Did I upset the Dharma protectors? And they would have lots of such kind of negative emotions and lots of the negative conclusions about themselves. They feel that they've already committed all the worst kinds of violation of vows. They've break their samayas and so on and so forth, and now they have to go. This is not good. Of course, it is not to say that you should be shameless. I'm not saying that at all. It is rather that you should encourage yourself, and so that you can continuously to tread onto this path. Otherwise, if you were to only stay in this life and feeling worried about everything and not attaining any insights, then you're simply living this life in a really meaningless way. It is squandering your human life. the Buddha said that you do not want to reach the time of death and be filled with remorse because you've spent your life in vain. We've already encountered a great Lama, the great teacher, and we are already in this place that is the holy site and that is favorable for practice, and we've already gained so many favorable conditions and have already attained the human body. The Buddha Dharma is still in this world. We can definitely attain liberation, or at least we would not be or at least we should practice diligently so that we won't be reborn in the three lower realms, because if we were to be reborn in the three lower realms, there is really no opportunity to attain liberation anymore. So we have to encourage ourselves to practice. This is the teaching that's given by the Buddha. The Buddha continued to say that I am like a good doctor who understands illness and prescribe medicines. Whether you take it or not is not the doctor's responsibility. So the Buddha, being the greatest doctor of the world, knowing the roots of the sentient being's affliction, so he's already prescribed the wonderful medicine that is emptiness. Whether you take this medicine is really your responsibility. According to Buddha Charita, in fact, it has exactly the same verse saying that I've already given the teaching of liberation to all of you. Now, to attain liberation is completely relying upon yourself. And then the Buddha said that, moreover, I'm like a virtuous guide who points out a good road. If you who hear it do not walk down that road, it is not the guide's fault. Just like there is a guide, if you've already heard about the correct path, but if you were not to tread on this path, if your mind is not mature enough to receive the teachings, then that is not the fault of the guide. So after we've received so many wonderful teachings of the Dharma, if we were to then let down of the Buddha or disappoint the Buddha, that is very sad. According to Mahaparinirvana Sutra, it says that just like the sun, though shining on the whole ground, but the blind cannot see the sunlight. It is not the fault of the sun. Similarly, the river of Ganges provide equal opportunities for sentient beings to drink. But if the ones who suffer from thirst do not go there and drink the water, it is not the fault of the river Ganges. The ground can give rise to various kinds of crops, but if the farmer do not plant the crops at the beginning to start with, then that is not the fault of the ground, of the earth. Similarly, the Buddha had already given us teachings with great equanimity, but because of the sentient beings' karmic retribution is very different, and if some of the beings do not uphold it and practice it, that's not the fault of the Buddha. So now we've already listened to the supreme teachings that's given by the supreme teachers, the wonderful Dharma guides. But if some of the people, the disciples, after receiving the wonderful dharmas given by the gurus, if they do not cherish such teaching, if they do not practice upon it, then that is really disappointing and very sad. So we should cherish the teaching given by the Buddha and not slander the teacher, not slander the correct Dharma. We should cherish it. So the Buddha, after giving the teachings, and then said that it is now your turn to take the responsibility of taking the medicine and to tread on the road, the correct path. And the Buddha said that all of you bhikshus, if you have doubts about suffering and the other four truths, you may quickly ask about them now. Do not harbor doubts and fail to clear them up. So the Buddha said that, well, if you have any doubts about the four truths, you can ask now. Do not harbor doubts in your mind. At that time, the world-honored one repeated this 3 times, yet no one asked him a question. All of the disciples, after hearing the question 3 times, nobody asked. Why? Why nobody asked the questions? There are a few reasons. First of all is that there are some disciples whom did not have the appropriate karma to listen, to hear the question at the beginning. Second of all, it is because the Buddha already was about to enter into parinirvana, and everyone was greatly saddened. So nobody had the intention to ask at the time. Nobody had the mind or heart to ask. And the last one is that the majority of the noble ones did not generate any questions to the Four Noble Truths. So it says that, and why was that? Because the assembly did not harbor any doubts, though the Buddha asked and repeat this question for 3 times. But nobody asked this question. At that time, Venerable Aniruddha, if you remember, he is the foremost of divine eye, the arhat of the divine eye. He contemplated the minds of the assembly and then said to the Buddha, world-honored one, the moon might grow hot and the sun could grow cold, but the fourth truth proclaimed by the Buddha could not be otherwise. So he then gave this metaphor by saying that even if the moon grow hot, though the moon is rather quite cool, but even if the moon might grow hot, and even if the sun could grow cold, but the Four Noble Truths proclaimed by the Buddha could not be otherwise. There is no way for the teaching of the Four Noble Truths to go otherwise. Because the truth of suffering taught by the Buddha is the nature and is of great truth. In fact, the method of giving teachings, the method of propagating the Dharma can have reformation, and sometimes such kind of reformation of propagating the Dharma is needed, but the content of Dharma do not need any changes or reformation. It is because what has taught by the Buddha was true. Even after 2,500 years, even such teaching of the Four Noble Truths is still completely acceptable and is still equally as true as that was 2,500 years ago. There is no change to it because nothing could surpass that of the truth. And he then continued to say that the truth of suffering taught by the Buddha is actually suffering and it cannot become happiness. There is nothing that we have to debate with it. There's nothing to debate because there is no happiness within the 3 realms. And then he continued to say that accumulation is truly the cause of suffering, besides which there is no other cause. There is no other cause for there is no other cause of suffering. For example, there is no other cause of the worldly, the cause of Indras, or the cause of God, or the cause of small particles. In fact, none of those causes are the true cause of karma and affliction. None of those are the causes of suffering at all. So I remember, according to the garland of Pith instructions by Pamasambhava, he said that there are many different causes that's explained by the heretics, where they've talked about the various reasons of suffering the various reasons that caused suffering, but none of those are correct. So this is the second aspect. The accumulation is truth. If one wants to destroy suffering, the cause of suffering must be destroyed. Because if the cause is destroyed, then the result is destroyed as well. So there's no other ways of destroying suffering. There's no way through any of the worldly methods or the heretics' method could lead to the cessation of suffering. So the only way of the ceasing of suffering is by practicing on the path, by come to the realization of emptiness and continuously practice this way. This is the only way to lead to the cessation of suffering. So the path leading to the destruction of suffering is truly the real path, besides which there is no other path. And World-honored one, all of these bhikshus are certain and have no doubt about the Four Truths. I really hope that all of us could also generate such kind of certainty to the Four Noble Truths as well. It is not to say that, oh, no, I can't generate any doubt. I have to practice by seeing everything is sacred. It is not that at all. It is rather through your personal studying and contemplation and practice, you come to this realization and come to this certainty without any doubts that the Four Noble Truths that's taught by the Buddha is just as such. That is definitely the truth. According to the Theravada tradition, the Four Noble Truths is very important. In fact, it is equally as important as it is in the Tantrayana as well. Many of the teachings, such as the treasury of wish-fulfilling jewel and the treasury of merit, in fact, they all started from the teaching of the foundation of the Four Noble Truths, and starting from there, one can attain the supreme realization of Tantrayana. So over here, then Aniruddha then expounded in such a way. When those in the assembly who have not yet done what should be done see the Buddha cross over to Nirvana, they will certainly feel sorrow. Those who have newly entered the Dharma and heard that what the Buddha taught will all cross over. They have seen the way like a flash of lightning in the light. In fact, around the time of parinirvana, there are a few different disciples. The first type is that the ones who have not attained enlightenment, have not really entered onto the path, such as Ananda. He attained arhathood after the parinirvana of the Buddha. He suffered gravely. So that is why in Parinirvana Sutra it talked about how Ananda was crying at all times. There is no interest in asking any questions. And there's another group of the mundane beings at the time of passing to parinirvana of the Buddha. People were very sad, just like when some great masters were about to pass into parinirvana, people would cry for a long period of time. When some genuine teacher, the Vajra master, were about to pass into parinirvana, I thought that I will not be able to abide in this world anymore. That's how I thought back then. Japan, but later I thought that I had to stay here. There are people, for example, would feel that I really love my parents, and if they were to die, I would not be able to stay alive in this world anymore. But as genuine Dharma practitioner, as a Buddhist, at the time of the Guru passing into parinirvana or parting from this world, it must be very difficult for them to endure the suffering of this situation. But for another group of people whom already entered onto the path, the ones already attained the fruition of entering, or the first fruition, they right away attained the noble fruition. And over here it says that those kind of people who have seen the way like a flash of lightning in the night, they, upon seeing the path, they would no longer be saddened at all, because they've already enlightened, they've already realized emptiness, even if it's the emptiness of the Shravakayas, because they've already understood that there is no self. If there is no self, why to cry about it? However, I remember the Venerable Kashyapa also cried a lot. He was quite saddened at that time. But those who have already gone, who had already done what was to be done, that referred to the group of arhats, who have already crossed over the ocean of suffering, will only have this thought: why has the world honored one crossed over to nirvana so soon? Such as the great arhats, upon seeing the Buddha was about to pass into parinirvana, they feel that, wow, how rare. The Buddha abided in this world for 81 years and now he's about to enter into parinirvana. That's in their level of realization. So the three types of people, or three types of disciples, they react very differently. The first one would be going through excruciating pain, and the second one attained liberation at that moment, and the third one, just like arhats, even when, in fact, the reaction of them, they rather felt a sense of curiosity at the time of the Buddha's parinirvana, and they sighed out of a sense of feeling this is quite a unique phenomenon, feeling that how could the Buddha pass into parinirvana in such a short period of time? So that was the general description of the reaction of the time. Although Aniruddha spoke these words, everyone in the assembly had already understood the meaning of the four holy truths, the four noble truths. After studying those, it's because everyone have already understood and truly developed certainty in the Four Noble Truths. That's the answer given by Aniruddha to the Buddha. But the world-honored one at that time wanted everyone in that great assembly to be firm and secure, to be sure that they indeed developed firm understanding without any doubt on the Four Noble Truths. So with a mind of great compassion, he spoke again for their sake. All of you, bhikshus, do not be grieved or distressed. In some other sutra, in fact, the Buddha also told Ananda in the similar way, saying that if I were to live in the world for an eon, my association with you would still come to an end. A meeting without a separation can never be. There is no meeting in this world that would not come to an end. So the Buddha was consoling everyone, saying that, well, there is going to be an end to the meeting, and there will definitely be a separation. The Dharma for benefiting oneself, that is attaining liberation for oneself, and benefiting the others, that is to cross the others over the ocean of samsara, is complete. So I've already taught you all the Dharma of benefiting self and the others. If I were to live longer, it would be of no further benefit. By abiding in this world, there is really no other meaning for me to abide in this world other than giving you the teachings upon the two benefits. In fact, according to the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, the teaching is very similar. He said that even if I were to abide in this world for a whole eon, there will be a day where I would depart from this world. I would then pass into parinirvana. But if you were to remember the Dharma teachings and to uphold the Dharma teachings, to memorize the Dharma teachings I've given to you, then it is of no difference than me abiding in this world still. According to Mahaparinirvana Sutra, he said that there is really of no difference. So let it be the Sutra of the Last Bequeathed or the Heart Sutra and any of the sutras. In fact, if we see it as the Buddha, the teachings given by the Buddha and the words that's left by the Buddha, they are of no difference than the Buddha himself. And the Buddha said that if you can do so, then it is of no difference than making offering to my flesh body, and no difference than making offering of the relics that I leave after my parinirvana. Such kind of relics of the Dharmakaya is the wisdom of no self. Such kind of emptiness teaching is the Dharmakaya of the Buddha. We can say it like that, and that is of no difference than the Buddha himself. That's taught by the Buddha directly. And then he continued to say that all of those who could be crossed over, whether in the heavens or among humans, have already crossed over, and all of those who have not yet crossed over have already created the causes and conditions for crossing over. In fact, the Buddha have already created the auspicious connections for the sentient beings to attain liberation for the reason that they cannot be liberated during the time of the Buddha. In fact, not only just the Buddha, the great masters and the bodhisattvas and so on, they all have their own Dharma activities of liberating sentient beings. After they've completed their actions of benefiting the others, even if they were requested to abide in this world, they probably won't. I remember Asanga, once he was asked to abide in this world, he did not agree to it. He said, "No, it's okay. I've already finished my activity in this world. I should then go to other worlds to benefit sentient beings." So according to the Shastra of Clear Realization, it states that there are the ones who are directly being liberated, and the ones who are not being directly liberated are placed into the path of liberation and planting virtuous seeds. From now on, all of my disciples, the Buddha continued to say that must continuously practice, then thus come one's Dharma body will always be enduring and indestructible. We should make the aspiration of passing down this teaching generation after generation. This is really important. That is why we need to understand not only the words but the meaning of this sutra. I really think that we should encourage people to make the aspiration and passing down the teaching generations after generations, let it be from the literal level or from the meanings aspect. We should all generate such kind of understanding. This is our aspiration and responsibility to do so. For people whom already made connection to all of us, we should encourage them to engage in study and even print this book and read this sutra and then print this sutra. That is truly the last request given by the Buddha. And we should understand that the Buddha, the great compassionate one, have left these teachings to us, just like the last words given by our mother and our father. That's really the words that we need to remember for our whole life. Before the passing of Phuntsog Rinpoche, he said that after my passing, I really hope that my disciples could protect and continue the Dharma Center that I've started. That is why some of the great disciples of his, though they had lots of opportunity to propagate the teachings in other places, they still remember the teaching and entrustment of Phuntsog Rinpoche, and that's why lots of his disciples are still abiding over here, staying over here, and propagating the teaching. So the Buddha over here said that my disciples should pass down the teaching that I've given to all of you. So in this way, the Dharma body of the Buddha will be constantly abiding, and that Dharma body is also called the Vajra body. That is the body that is indestructible, will not cease at all. And then over here, he continued to say that you should know, therefore, that everything in the world is impermanent. Meetings necessarily have separation, so do not harbor grief. Every appearance in the world is like this. This is really the truth of the world, just as Longchenpa in the Treasury of Peace Instructions, he said that though the virtuous teachers do not want to part from this world, but there is going to be a day that they will part from this world. So now we have still the opportunity of listening to the Dharma. We still have such opportunities of gathering, let it be in a family setting or in a class setting, but still there will be separation. This is the truth. And there's really nothing to be saddened about. So be vigorous, seek liberation right away. Destroy the darkness of delusion with the brightness of wisdom. Only with the light of wisdom we can dispel all the darkness. This is really important. We should seek for liberation, and with the wisdom of liberation, we can dispel all the darkness and all the suffering of this world. The world is truly dangerous and unstable. It is not reliable. My attainment of nirvana is like getting rid of an evil disease. There is really nothing to grasp onto. There's no body to be grasped onto. That's the realization of the Buddha. The malign body is falsely named, drowning in the great ocean of birth, sickness, old age, and death. How can one who is wise not to be happy when he gets rid of it, like killing a hateful thief? So the Buddha appears in such a way, and he used the metaphor of saying that the body is falsely named, and he used the metaphor of saying that the body is really just like an evil, an object that harbors evil disease. So this malign body is only falsely named. And such kind of body that's drowning in great ocean of birth, sickness, old age, and death, one should be happy that finally he gets rid of it, just like killing a hateful thief. According to the Dhammapada Sutra, it says that there is no bigger faults than having a body in this world. According to the adornment of Sutra Shastra, Mahayana Sutra Shastra, it just says that because the sentient beings have a body, therefore there are accumulation of suffering. Without a body, then there would be no suffering. The Buddha's body, in fact, is full of the beautiful marks and adornments. So when the Buddha appears to part from all of us, we would definitely feel lots of sorrow. But when at the time of passing into parinirvana, the Buddha then asked his disciples not to grasp onto the body. At the time of death, we would generate great grasping towards it. We grasp onto our body, grasp onto our friends and families, and even the wealth. And we have lots to grasp onto as an ordinary being. However, there is no one in this world can pass birth and death and can keep grasping onto all of those. There is no one can do that. According to Mahaparinirvana Sutra, it says that the most supreme the venerable ones of the most supreme of the celestial beings and human, the great Tathagata, whose body is like the Vajra that is indestructible. Such kind of Tathagata would also manifest impermanence. Don't mention about the ordinary beings. The Tathagata who has the Vajra-like indestructible body and the beautiful marks and signs would also manifest impermanence. The ordinary beings like us, then how can we think that our flesh body that is just like a water bubble, what is there to grasp onto? There is nothing that we can count on. Therefore, if the hospital were to announce that you're about to die very soon, though that we can't attain the same kind of realization like the Buddha being of great freedom, but at least we should contemplate that this body has already served me for decades, then that's fine. It's time for me to go. We should contemplate it in such a way. The next passage is really of great sadness. Over here, the Buddha said that all of you bhikshus, you should always single-mindedly and diligently seek the way out of all the moving and unmoving dharmas of the world, for they are all decaying and fixed appearances. So the Buddha said that everything in this world, let it seem to be very solid or not solid, let it be of quietude or of waving. Maybe it seems to be the mountain, the king of the mountain in this world. It seems that it's unmoving and at all. It is immovable. In fact, the nature of it is decaying and unfixed. Everything in this world they would eventually come to decay. There is nothing in this world that is unchanging. Then he said, all of you, here I stop. According to Vasubandhu's commentary, he said that here stop means that all of you should stop the movements of your three gates. Stop talking, stop your dualistic thoughts, and stop your body. That is saying that enter into samadhi. Here's nothing more to say. Time is passing away, and I want to cross over to Nirvana. These are my very last instructions. Out of the teachings the Buddha had given for 49 years, this is the last words of the Buddha. Just like Pontsog Rinpoche's last teaching was one should not abandon one's own path and one should not disturb the other's mind. At that time, the bright lamp of the world, the supreme teacher of the beings of the three realms, the great compassionate Buddha parted from this world, and he gave us the last teaching like such. I really hope that all of you should practice upon it with great diligence. When I was translating this, it was on the 19th of February, and I cried for a long period of time because I was really saddened. Now we've completed this last Bequeathed Sutra. That is the most supreme and precious spiritual wealth left by the Buddha. I really hope all the followers of the Buddha shall practice upon it with great diligence again and again, uphold it and pass it down to beings generations after generations. Then we should stop here today.
Sonam dai tanche zuba nyam tona ni be jana pamje jirga nanchi ranong zuba yi zuba tsone rola zhora shong